Welcome back, guys. The Ordeal of Reconstruction. I'm Dr. Chris Erskine, and we're going to talk today about the changes that took place in the United States law as a result of Reconstruction. Now, this is probably going to be a short lesson because the information that I'm going to give you in this lesson, it's in your book, but it's so important. It is so important, and so I don't want to mix these three things with anything else. So these three things are, let's look at the first slide, the 13th Amendment. The first change to the Constitution. Now, what is an amendment? This is something that we've talked about in the past. In your book, it's in your book, and we've talked about it in other lessons. An amendment is a change. And so in this case, it's a change to the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution controls all laws in the United States. And China has a constitution. Most countries have a constitution. The 13th Amendment, this is what it does. It frees all slaves and ends slavery forever, permanently in the United States. This was ratified. It's passed in Congress in 1865, and it's ratified in 1865. Now, ratified means once Congress votes on it, you'll learn more about this in government class next year, but as soon as Congress passes a change to the Constitution, it then has to go to the states, and each state has to agree to that. And once 2/3 of each of the states agree to change the Constitution, then immediately it applies to all of the states. And so if you have 9 states and 6 of them vote yes, as soon as the 6th state votes yes, the other 3 automatically have joined. And so the 13th Amendment is ratified in 1865. 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is one of the most important amendments in the United States today. When I ask my students in class which is the most important amendment, they will often say the First Amendment, freedom of speech and religion and press and media, or sometimes they'll say the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, have weapons in the United States. I don't think that's true. I think the 14th Amendment is the most important. This, and we're looking at the slide that says the 14th Amendment. I'm going to read some of this to you, but then we'll also talk about this. Assures that citizenship rights in the Civil Rights Act could not be declared unconstitutional. Now, that's a simple way. We can break this down and say it's very simple. The 14th Amendment makes all African Americans born in the United States citizens just like me, able to get a passport just like any American citizen. Before this was passed and ratified in 1868, African Americans were not American citizens. President Johnson, remember the last lesson, the Constitution as it is, the Union as it was, well, he fought this amendment. He did not want this amendment to be passed. And Congress passes it anyway, and it passes in Congress in 1868. And Tennessee is the first Southern state, the first Confederate state to pass this, and only the 3rd state overall. And that's Johnson's home state. And so he might not have been very happy about that. Now let's look at what the 14th Amendment says. There's 4 sections in the 14th Amendment. We're only going to look at the first section. The other 3 sections are not so important to us anymore. But this first section is really important, and we're going to read this. So read this with me. As you're looking at the screen, listen to what I'm saying, and you can also read it. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction or laws thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside or live. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Now, that's all very important. I'm going to stop there for just a second. All that's very important. But it's the next part. You see 2 phrases that are bold or darker. It's the next part that's really important. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, due process of law, it's called the Due Process Clause. Due process means that if you're accused of a crime, that it has to go to court. The government can't just take you and put you in jail. They have to actually take you to court and let you go through the appeals process. And and let the government find you guilty, or you can defend yourself. Now this next phrase, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. In the United States, the equal protection of the laws means that blacks and whites are equal. Chinese and whites are equal. Latinos are equal. Non-citizens, if they're in the United States, have the same rights as American citizens. Gay people have the same rights. Old people have the same rights. Young people have the same rights. Everyone is equal. Women have the same rights as men. Everyone is equal. That's what the 14th Amendment says, and that's why it's so important. But then, of course, it applied to African Americans. On the next slide, we see the 15th Amendment, and this is the third one. There were 3 changes to the Constitution: the 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves, the 14th Amendment, which gave them the right to citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which allows them to vote. So if you're a citizen of the United States, then you can vote. You can't vote if you're not a citizen. The 14th Amendment made them a citizen, and the 15th Amendment said that all citizens can vote. This is passed by Congress in 1869, and it's ratified by the states in 1870. So these are very important amendments that have completely changed the way that Americans live. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Now you'll realize from your book that there's a lot of stuff that happens during the Reconstruction period. And we'll talk, I think, more about Reconstruction in another lesson. But these 3 changes were the big changes that took place after the Civil War was over, from 1865 to 1870. So, all right, we'll see you guys next time with the next chapter in the next lesson. Talk to you later.